analyses of the primaries. So let me offer an analysis of the panel. First, I want to commend Martha for making the first reference to a 7-10 split in bowling that I have ever heard on television. I want to commend Megan for, at about 11:20, teasing the Alaska results, so people would stay up until midnight. A lonely nation turns its eyes and asks, whither Anchorage? And lastly, I want to commend the whole panel for not losing it completely in the Viagra segment, although I did notice that you had to go to commercial. So I can understand how bad it was.
You're like Donald Trump.
Now,
you see every frame.
Exactly. Now, as to the primaries, which I think is the main topic of discussion. Look, to summarize really quickly, Trump had a wonderful night, of course, but what he did, I don't think it was sort of an explosive growth. He stayed on the glide path, which if he stays on, he wins, and I think largely because of the fractured opposition. Cruz had a reasonably good night. He won Texas by about 15, but his downside is this is his strongest part of the country, and if he couldn't do the breakthrough here, it's hard to see where it happens. Rubio, I thought, had a rough night. He did win one state, but that, I think, is highly offset by the fact that he did not get to the 20% threshold in Texas, which will cost him a lot of delegates, which will go to Cruz and Trump. Overall, I think we are essentially where we were yesterday. And the big events upcoming now are the debate. Can Rubio keep up the attack, the barrage that started with the previous debate? And will that have the desired effect? If Rubio is right in interpreting the late deciders coming his way and the drop somewhat of Trump against what the expectations were, then I think he's got a chance to win Florida, which I think is the other big event. I think everything will happen in Florida. That's going to be the Waterloo for Rubio. If he loses, it could be springboard if he wins.
Charles, just looking at some of the commentary online, this is from Charles Cook of National Review saying he disagrees that this was not a good night for Marco Rubio, that Rubio is done, as some have been saying, saying, look, he was not expected to do particularly well during this so-called SEC primary, saying he ran ahead of his polling in these states. He racked up delegates. He stayed within his targets. He only got one fewer delegate than Donald Trump in Virginia. And he's very well positioned in the states that are coming up next, saying that the next round looks much more like Virginia and Minnesota than it does like Alabama and Texas. Your thoughts on that?
All of that is true. But as of tonight, he's still treading water. The question is, can he maintain the last couple of days of momentum? And I think it does. The fact that he got a lot of late deciders, and the fact that I think he does have some propulsion behind him indicates that his strategy of going, if you like, into the mud with Trump and making this kind of almost lighthearted attacks on him is working. Can he sustain it? Will it succeed? Will people tire of it? What he has going for him right now is potential. What's ahead if he sustains what he's got right now? But again, all of that hangs on Florida. I think that's why Trump is there tonight. That's the challenge. That's going to be the big fight for him.
And on the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton with 7 wins. Bernie Sanders, though, with 4 wins tonight in a night that he was not expected to do well. And yet, money-wise, Bernie Sanders still racking in the box at more than $40 million, beating her, rather, in fundraising.
Look, what Sanders is doing now is he's creating the premise for a movement which he knows will succeed him. And the question is, how strong will it be? He's not out for the nomination. He's not going to win it. And he knows it. He's not a fool. He'd like to go into the convention with about 40% of the delegates, perhaps a bit less, to make his stand, to make his speech, to bow off the stage, and to leave behind essentially a socialist element in the party, which it's never really had. You go back to Hubert Humphrey in Minnesota in the 40s, that was the high point of socialist in the Democratic Party, and to revive it, and that will be his legacy. I think he loves that. He thinks it's important. And considering that he was an essentially unknown senator with not a lot of achievements in a quarter of a century, it will be a remarkable legacy.
Charles, quickly, before we go to break, what do you think is going to happen to this debate on Thursday night?
I think it's going to be the rumble in the jungle. It's going to be, I think Rubio thinks that what he's done is going to succeed. Cruz will join in the fight. I don't think Cruz, Rubio go after each other. It's target Trump. That's their only hope, and I think they will go for it.
Great to see you, Charles. Thank you. By the way, folks, that happens Thursday night, 9 p.m., right here on the Fox News Channel. The two of us, the head cowboy guy, Chris Wallace.
In Motor City.
That's right.
Detroit.
Hope you join us.